Good morning, Henry. How are you?
Am I right when I say that? So in 13 months, this city council has now said we're willing to raise your taxes 4 different times. Is that a fair statement?
Well, 4 different times, 4 council members have raised their hands to increase taxes on Greenville. That's accurate.
So
Two of
the
those were. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the answer to the question, what do we do about the fact that there wasn't enough money in the roads was let's just add it and increase taxes. No, don't take anything out. Don't take out the greenway that hadn't been vetted. Don't take out any of the stuff that hadn't been, wasn't originally the intent of the bond. We're going to leave our stuff in there. We're going to leave the stuff in there that we put in there without any vetting. We'll just add another $2 million and just have the taxpayers pay for it. It's another tax increase.
Well, I don't think there's any question. There's a divide in philosophy on this council, and I appreciate the support of Councilmember Candy Smith and Rose Glover sticking to our plan from 2 years, well, actually from 3 years ago with the previous council, when we faced financial decisions. The first thing we did is we did a strong vetting process, and we're beginning that process, which we knew would take a number of years. And we actually were able to cut spending each year by over $2.5 million. And rather than raise taxes, we cut taxes. And there's now clearly a philosophical divide. We've got, Henry, I know what it's like to have to meet a payroll. And my heart really goes. I think it was David or someone who called the last hour, and I think he summed it up well. A guy who had a $60,000 a year job, lost his job. I think there's a disconnect here with some that just do not have contact with our population and understand that on a basic level. When you look at raising a tax, it better be your last option, or it better be tied specifically to something that will clearly show a return that's going to bring more opportunity here to the community. And it's been an interesting ride this past year and a half, that's for sure.
Well, immediately when the idea of just increasing this $2 more million and increasing taxes again, the 4 people on the council. Oh, well, wow. Why did we think of that earlier? But you can raise taxes and do anything you want to do, Mayor. You can raise taxes and build. We can build a sports complex if we want to raise taxes.
Ultimately, the decision rests with the citizens of Greenville, and that is the concern. And anyone who didn't get a chance to hear that discussion, often that gets lost when you hear a media report or a news article. If you get a chance, go back and watch the GTV version on Channel 9. Watch the discussion that was held.
And people really ought to do that. They ought to watch the indignation of council members who just totally discount what other council members think and are actually aggravated when someone wants to make a motion other than the motion they want made.
And I'll tell you what I did see. I saw, especially Councilmember Glover, who said it pretty clearly, and she never holds back in her opinion, and then laying out her thought process. And some don't always agree, and some do, but she said it pretty succinctly. She said, we started this process. It was about the roads. It was about a dire need that we had 100 lane miles in this city that we need to address according to our experts. That's what this bond process started about. And in order to make this non-controversial, we're willing to pull the streetscape and these other items that staff brought up if you'll just vote for the roads. And Rose Glover made that motion last night. See, this is what doesn't translate in the media reports. The motion was made last night and was seconded by Ms. Smith. And after, again, debate and some, as you said, some indignation, clearly represented by the other side who have a plan. And that was succinctly voted down, again, 4-2. That would have made it just about the roads. And, again, let's be clear. That is something we need to deal with. But my concern now is, what kind of precedent do you set? You need to covet anytime you're dealing with the taxpayer's dollar. That needs to be something that it needs to be taken very seriously in terms of how you approach it. There's never been a tax increase related to a bond process. If it was related just to roads, I think we had universal support. But this was made political and controversial because they were not willing to back off on certain projects that clearly, has, creates different thoughts related to the bond.
The other thing that I think we're going to start hearing now, because, the spin is going to be, well, people against this don't want progress. They don't want to see, there was a comment made last night, I think, by Councilman Smiley, this is everybody's bond. This is everybody. This is about progress. This is about transforming the community. I'm all for transforming the community. I like the Greenway. But again, it's like if you want to do something transformational, it's probably not, in spite of the fact that you had some of Calvin's supporters come down there last night and say, hey, we're business people, we support this. If you want to do something transformational, it's probably not a bike path and a walkway. I mean, I'm not against that. But I think we're going a little bit far when we start saying that's economically transformational.
Well, let's be clear.
Every idea that's come up. Let's take the idea about doing some development on the town common. That would have been transformational. Right. Developing restaurants, developing some things down on the waterway, something like that would be transformational. But this group would never. Oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. We got to build bike paths and walkways. I'm all for that. We got a nice greenway down there. I don't have a problem with it. I don't even have a problem with spending $750,000 to extend it. What I have a problem with is for two people to decide that we're going to do that without having a public hearing, without having any vetting by the community, and then sticking it onto a bond that everybody's told we've got to have because our streets are crumbling. That's what I'm struggling with.
Well, what we heard last night from the public, I don't think anybody, including you, disagrees with what they said. They talked positively about the impact of quality of life and things where the greenways added. That's not what is at debate here. And I think you framed it up correctly. It's clearly not what's at debate. We have over $4 million that we have set aside right now, which will double the size of the greenways. What is at debate is, I could make an argument for many worthwhile projects, as you said, that would have a clear return on investment, and many that our bond advisory committee closely observed and looked at. But what's not being seen here by some members on council, I just feel, is the bigger picture. We're trying to start a long-term process here where every few years we vet a number of projects, the public gives input, we talk about them, and anytime that opportunity is there, there's a chance for maybe the private sector to step up and maybe Mr. McCarty or others step up and help fund partially some projects that will transform this community. That's why a couple of years ago we did transformational projects. We put infrastructure uptown, which helped serve as a catalyst for McCarty and others to launch their project. If we hadn't done that, there would be no boundary right now. And Mr. Staff and others have clearly said that. If we haven't offered some other economic development elements around the city, where would we be right now? But those are transformational opportunities. This piece is important, but it's not unless it's a part of an overall long-term strategy for how we properly look at bonding.
Yeah.
Now, my concern now is the number's pretty big. But it's going to ultimately it's in the hands of the citizens. They're going to have to decide. I hope this is not an opportunity lost where we could have really taken a step forward in terms of getting a vote and get our infrastructure on board.
I know you're going to be on the station later today, and I appreciate that. You're going to be on Greenville Grit with Terry Williams and Michael Overton tonight at 6:30. So if people want to hear more of your point of view, they can listen in tonight at 6:30. Both Michael and Terry were on the Bond Advisory Committee. I know they have strong opinions about this as well. And, it's funny. When we open up the phone lines, we always offer the opportunity for anybody who disagrees to call in. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm moving in the wrong circles. But we haven't. I think we've had 0 phone calls on this radio station arguing that I'm wrong about this and arguing. And so, maybe at the end of the day, I'm going to be wrong, and the citizens are willing to vote themselves their 4th tax increase in 13 months to pay for all these things. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm right. And then maybe some other people better stop listening to, just the people that they hang out with and realize that when you're raising taxes on people, I mentioned earlier the complex that we're in right here. I mean, a 1/4 cent sales tax increase on this project right here, our building that we're in right here. It's a pretty large project. It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
Well, I will say this, and we have many citizens across Greenville that are very passionate about the things they love, whether it's a swim facility or a performing arts center and so many other things that we believe are worthwhile investments because those help bring jobs here. They do, all these other elements. But when you have a group within a certain circle that are passionate, you don't blame them for being passionate. They depend on the council members to have a frame of reference. They depend on that council member to be able to say, you know what, you've got your share, and we need to also look at a balanced approach here across the city. And right now, we need to look at the bigger picture, and we need to focus on infrastructure. So, those folks aren't at blame for being passionate about what they enjoy. I don't blame them one bit. But what they depend on are council members to be knowledgeable and be able to have a frame of reference from a business standpoint to understand how it all fits together. And I think that's the challenge that we look with this bond going forward.
Thank you, Mayor.